Hello, co-journeyers, and welcome back to The Truth So Help Me Good. I am your host, Barbara Landry, and together we continue to explore some of the bigger questions about this journey we call life, with inspiration from my upcoming memoir, The Truth So Help Me Good. Welcome to episode 22. My special guest today is Rev.Dr. Stephanie Rutt, founder of the Tree of Life Interfaith Temple in Amherst, New Hampshire. She received her Doctor of Ministry from Andover Newton Theological School, now Andover Newton Seminary at Yale, where her thesis won the Frederick Buchner Prize for Excellence in Writing. She is the creator of the Tree of Life Interfaith Seminary, author of several books, and has appeared on the TEDx stage. Some of her books include An Ordinary Life Transformed, Lessons for Everyone from the Bhagavad Gita, Living the Prayer of Jesus, a study of the Lord's Prayer in Aramaic, Lovers in the Wilderness, Awaken mystical unity and create a joyful life with mantra prayer, and The Call of the Morning Dove, how sacred sound awakens mystical unity. I know Stephanie as my teacher, mentor, spiritual guide, and friend. She is with us today to talk about her most recent book, which she calls a spiritual memoir entitled Dancing on the Moon, the Non-Ordinary Life I Never Saw Coming. Welcome, Stephanie.
Oh, thank you, Barbara, for inviting me to be here and to have this opportunity to share with you and to love with you and to wonder with you and to journey with you. So I'm blessed to be here.
Ooh, I'm excited. Thank you so much. So I'm holding this gorgeous book in my hand, and without even opening it, on the cover there is this striking picture of the full moon. How about we start? Can you explain the significance of the moon as it relates to your memoir and the idea of dancing on the moon? Tell us about that.
Oh, well, the moon, as you know, has no light of its own. It just reflects the light of the sun. And so I've always had a great affinity with the moon because it reminds me that so many times in my life I have just been that reflection of God. There just have been so many times in my life when I've said, oh my gosh, I never saw that coming. How did that happen? Or what was that about? Or oh my gosh. And so oftentimes it's left me in this place of being humble and silent and so grateful to just be that moonlight, which isn't mine. It's God's light, which in His way, in His time, will shine through me. So the moon had to be a part of the title. And then in those moments when I get to be that moonlight, oh my gosh, it just leaves my heart dancing and just and just in awe and in gratitude for getting to be used for that moment, just to get something done at that time. So I love being the reflection, and it makes me dance on the moon every single time.
So beautiful. So beautiful, Stephanie. And it really leads right into my next question, which is, as part of your title, you call the book a spiritual memoir. And I'm curious to know, what exactly do you mean by that, and how is it different from any other memoir in that respect?
Well, anybody who knows me or has spent any time with me knows I love God most. The most important thing I can tell you about me is that I love God most. So, as I look back over my life, what happened was I saw these stories, some of which I've shared on my blog over the years, but not all of them. Many I've only shared for the first time in the memoir. But as I looked back, I could see all of these just really ordinary occurrences, just everyday occurrences that would often surprise me and awaken me and enlighten me, but really just everyday things. And I thought, oh my gosh, it's like God has been here all the time, every time, time and time and time and time again. And so I couldn't separate my personal everyday experience with my experience of God. I wasn't able to do it. I talk about, and I share little stories about my grandchildren because they also have a very important lesson. But I don't talk about my grown children because I would think it would be only right that they would have an opportunity to share their feelings and thoughts about a particular instant or situation. And so I've tended to focus more on what I call the spiritual side, but it's really how it shows up in those everyday occurrences in life, and how it's just often has left me surprised and humble and grateful, and has saved me from myself again and again and again and again. So
in the introduction to your book, you describe two significant childhood experiences, one with your grandfather and the other with a teacher who assigned you to public speaking when you were struggling with having a stutter. Somehow these early experiences seem to have led you on a spiritual journey. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, I'm trying to think of the short version of this, which would be good here. When I was about 10 years old, the summer I had turned 10 years old, we went to visit my grandparents, and we lived in California, my mom and I, and we went to visit my grandparents in Mississippi. And I loved going there. It's like that was home, even though it was only a few weeks in the summer, but that was home. And my granddaddy, how we call them in the South, was just the closest person in my whole life. It just, I counted down the months and the weeks and the days and the hours and the minutes until I would get to go and see him in the summer. And one of the things that we would do is we would lay in bed at night up against the wrought iron headboard, and he would read from the Reader's Digest. There wasn't money for children's books, at that point. So, and I didn't have a clue what he was reading or what it meant or anything like that. But this was my special time with my granddaddy, and I waited all year for it. So on that particular summer, I was 10 years old, and my body was beginning to change a little. And so finally we had arrived, and it was the first night, and I ran in the bedroom, and I crawled up in the bed, and I couldn't wait for the story to begin. And it was just silence. I was a little confused. I couldn't figure out what was happening. And then he said, go on. You're too old now. You're too old. Go on. And I didn't know what to do. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. I didn't know what to do. Finally, I think I got myself off the bed and was leaving the room. And he never looked up. He never said anything again except for, go on, go on. And I remember feeling caught there, like I couldn't go forward and I couldn't go back. There wasn't any place to go. I don't remember the rest of the summer, but when we got home, I started stuttering really bad. And school was really the worst time because we'd have to read a report or we'd have to get up, and I just couldn't speak. I'd stutter, 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 push and stutter, push and stutter. I couldn't speak. And kids being kids would laugh, and I couldn't really do anything but just laugh with them. What else could I do? I didn't know what else to do. So over the years, I began to learn little tricks. Whenever I'd get in a place when I'd feel a word that was coming on that wasn't going to get out, I would change it, or I would avoid words with certain letters, or do all the little tricks that people do when they stutter. And could control it most of the time. But I was fast forward now to I'm 16, and I'm in a speech class, which I would have never been in had it not been required. And I had written this story, which I don't remember what it was about, but I'd written a story and had read the story pretty clearly. Still had a little places I got caught, but I read it pretty clearly. A little bit of stuttering. My teacher, whom I've dedicated my memoir to, Miss Shirley Curtis, I said, I want to see you after class. I thought, oh my God. And my friend Sally, who's endorsed my memoir, happens to remember being there, so she witnessed this conversation. And she said to me, she said, I'm going to put you in the speech club because you have something to say. So that's all I remember about that. I ran home. We lived about 2 blocks from the school, and I ran home. I thought, no, I can't do this. I cannot do it. No. There is no way. This is not happening. This is not happening. This is not happening. I cannot do this. I thought, no, I can't do it. So but I didn't have a voice, so I didn't have a way to say no. So my mom had started taking us to this church. It was a new thought kind of church by Ernest Holmes on the science of mind, and they were teaching us something about prayer. So I can remember the first time I was supposed to get up, and I was sitting on the chair waiting for my name to be called, and I just kept praying. I cannot do this. I cannot do this. You have to do it for me because I can't do this. I cannot get up there. I'll stutter. I won't be able to get the words out. You have to do it for me. I cannot do it. I can't. Not happening. And all I can say is from that very first time I was called up, I opened my mouth, I looked out, and it just, something happened. It's like I've never had words to describe it, but it was like something, all of a sudden God was speaking for me. I was clear, I was relaxed, I was calm, I was funny. And there was a part of me thinking, who is doing this? And what the heck is going on? It's like, what? I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it was happening. But that was the beginning. And after that, that's exactly how it turned out again and again. And every time I had to give a talk or give a speech or get up and do anything. And even today, I don't ever write anything out. I dot point, or I just show up, and then I let God have the floor, because God can do it so much better than I can. But what it taught me is that I didn't have words at the time, but what it taught me was that surrendering at that deepest level is what makes us free of ourselves. It frees us and frees us, and it taught me that here I was, this young girl that had a very lonely life, and something I just didn't think I could ever overcome, that God would use that and use me as a teacher and a minister, and so now when I say that we blossom not in spite of, but because of, that's exactly what my life has taught me.
Wow. It's powerful. It's powerful. So I want to ask you, so that was just the introduction. But your book is broken up into 7 parts, and I think I'd like to read what each one is called, if that's okay with you. So part 1 is Awakening. Part 2 is Dusty Roads. Part 3, Discovery. Part 4, Valleys and Mountaintops. Part 5, Surprise and Delight. Part 6, Wild and Free. And then Part 7, Full Circles. If you could just talk a little bit about why you decided to break it down this way, and what exactly do these 7 different parts represent. If you can just give us a little idea about that.
I have to tell you something kind of funny. When I read your questions you sent, I thought, oh, there are 7 parts. I really hadn't really noticed that. So I just thought, well, that's how it turned out. But what I did was I had all these different stories, and I wanted to make it stories. I didn't want it to be chronological. Here I was born, and this happened, and this happened, and this happened. I wanted it to be stories that everyone could, in some way, relate to, because again, the stories were coming out of everyday experience, but I had this pile of stories I wanted to share, and it took a long time to be able to say, oh, okay, this goes here, and this goes with this, and this goes with the, oh, and this will go here, and this will go here. But it took a while to have that happen. But I did just wanted to tell stories so that people could have a little snapshot of something. And my hope was that each one of those snapshots would then touch something in them, touch something in the reader, so that they might also come away with something that has nothing to do with me, but something each particular story might have ignited or spurred or healed. Or someone told me recently who had read the memoir, which just was so important. It was just really beautiful to hear. They said, you know, I read the story about the piano bench and how you said about when you hugged your mom, how all of a sudden in that moment you knew that you were never going to get what you needed, not because she was bad or cruel or anything. It was she didn't have it either. And this particular person said, oh my gosh, that's completely changed. That was worth, in her words, like years of therapy and healing. It's like I never thought about it that way. And I guess that's my hope. My hope was that by offering little clips of my story, little snapshots, that they might help other people in their stories and on their journeys. And that was really my hope. But I can't speak to any great divine design. It just fell out that way.
And you have done a remarkable job of sharing these stories in a very short. Most of them are very short and concise, and capture the essence of the experience, which is not, I imagine, not easy to do, because it is so powerful in its little sort of distilled essence. So powerful, not any less powerful because it's not long and detailed. You are able to capture the true essence and the core. And I really appreciate that. Thank as a reader.
Thank you.
It's also one of my observations is that many, if not most, of the experiences you share in your book are in the way of challenges. Is there a correlation between challenges and the spiritual path, you think? And if so, what is it? I would love to hear you talk about that.
Oh my gosh.
The essence version, of course.
Right. Yeah. Okay, this is as my Sufi teacher once told me a long time ago, give me the homeopathic version. That we blossom not in spite of, but because of. And what that means is that every time something happens that lands in us in this yucky, sticky, hurtful, painful way, is offering us an opportunity to look at, heal, and transform some part of our psyche, our energy, that is holding these emotions. So yay, it is not the fun part. It's not the fun part, but it's the part that frees us from our own inner prisoner. So every time I have a reaction, I know that that belongs to me, and I need to go into my spiritual practice and say, okay, this has happened on the surface. What is really going on in me that needs my love? Because sometimes people say, I want to get rid of this, or I don't want this, or make this go away, or whatever. But I don't think there's anything to get rid of. Where's it going? Where's it going? Where is it going? Where is it going? There's only something to love. There's only something that really needs our love. So once I can love me, myself, enough to go in and listen to and hold and love those hard places, the more they can release, and the energy in them can be returned to light and goodness and love, and that energy can then be used for a higher purpose, and I am left just a little bit more free.
Sounds awesome. There are so many experiences that you describe in the book during your lifetime, each teaching you some kind of a lesson, including times with your grandchildren, being in the wilderness, pursuing your own professional accomplishments, of which there are many. And I couldn't help but be reminded of when I was in the seminary class with you, and one of the first assignments you gave us was to go out in nature and find something in nature that symbolizes what's most important to each of us. And I remember going to Panema Bog and looking at everything there and coming up with something. Oh, yes, this. And we all showed up for class, the good, attentive students that we all were, and did our show and tell, our first show and tell. And I just love this about you as a teacher. You sat and held a space for all of it and all of us, and it was all as it was meant to be. And then you shared with us what your symbol was and what it represented. And I remember being really just surprised and delighted, really, with it was a stone in the shape of a heart. I think it was even maybe red. And you said, this is most important to me because it represents love. And that is the most important thing that there is. And the theme of love is so clearly woven into each of the stories in your book. It's who you are. You just are love. The giving of it, the teaching of it, the being of it, in my experience. So I don't know if I've left room for you to answer the question, but my question is maybe more about how did you come to that? Because it is so clearly at the core of who you are and what you teach is love. Can you talk about that? And I think you were just talking about it, but how did that happen for you? Because that, that is the highest vibration there is. That's sort of like when we talk about our highest selves. Is that not where love is?
Wow, that's a big question. I think it started with that first speech where I thought, I can't do this. I'll stutter. And everybody will laugh. I'll stutter and they'll laugh. And God spoke for me when I could not. And I had never felt I didn't have the words for it at the time, but I'd never felt a love that deep, that surprising, that so unconditional. So it's like, lay it all in my hand, in my unseen hand, and I will carry you. I will speak for you. It's like God tells Moses, whom I dearly love, that had some kind of speech issue. He says, yeah, this is the Rutt translation. Get over yourself. Just go. I'll put the words in your mouth and I'll tell you what to say. Don't worry about it. I love Moses. And I think on some really deep level, it was at that moment that only way I can describe it is like I was claimed. You are mine. You belong to me. So through all the years of my teaching, and then I just started to know that if God could do that for me, God could do anything. And as long as I knew, I'm just here to work for you. You're my boss. I serve you. Help me be the best instrument I can be. On some level, I just knew that that's all I needed to do, and God would do the rest. Could not have articulated that even 25 years ago, but on some deep level, I think I really knew that, because I just knew I would put these things, put my little prayers in my prayer box, and you would think, ain't no way in H that's ever going to happen. There's no way that's going to happen. But I thought, if God can speak for me when I cannot, God can do anything. So, and I'm here to serve God, and I'm here to hopefully serve a greater good. So why not? So put it in the prayer bowl, let it go, and time and time and time and time again, I'd be surprised at what God could do. And I call that not emotional love, I call it devotional love, because emotional love would have me claiming it. It's not emotional love. I can't claim it. It's like I'm watching it and surprised and observing it and smiling and oh my God. And it just leaves you humble and still and quiet. And it's devotional love. Mm-hmm. It's so full and big and wide that it's complete unto itself. It doesn't need anything. It doesn't need me. And that's what makes me that moonlight reflection of the one to whom I belong and to the one whom I love the most. It makes all the difference. It changes everything.
Well, for a hard question, you did a really good job answering it. I knew you would. You are a very accomplished writer. You've written books, you have a blog, you've written curriculum for the seminary, you've have articles published in the paper as an activist, advocate, and each little chapter begins with a little writing that I assume was something you wrote.
Yes.
Are those things that you wrote especially for the book, or?
No. I would never call myself a poet. I'm not I'm not a poet in that I don't think of myself as a poet, but there are times when these poems just flow through me. It's like um, it just happens that way, and oftentimes I'll get this little message. It's like, okay, it just is so clear that just I don't have any choice. Sit down, get a piece of paper, a pencil, and write. And this poem will just flow out of me in this most amazing way. And so I had a pile of, I don't know, maybe 40 to 50 different ones that had come over the years. And I thought, I can tell all these stories that have their lessons and all of that, but it's when I write the poems that I feel this deep love that I try to capture in the poems, but they just happen. They just happen. I don't think sit down, write a poem. No, I'm told in some way, sit down. I'm ready to write a poem through you. And that's how it happens. It's like it's pretty amazing. Can I tell a really short story
Please
about that?
do.
This particular poem isn't in the book because it's in the seminary curriculum. But one day, you might remember this. You were in that class. We was doing the seminary day, and I thought it was like 5 minutes until 9 and nobody was here. I thought, do I have the wrong day? Am I here on the wrong day? Where's my class? There were like 16 people and nobody was there. And all of a sudden, it was as clear as a bell, get a piece of paper and a pencil, sit down and write this. So I got a piece of paper and pencil and I sat down next to the door on the bench, and this poem, Why You Are Here, just flowed out of me at like within 60 seconds, 2 minutes at most. As soon as I was done, the first car pulls up in the parking lot, and then the second car pulls up, and they all get out, and I put on this music, and we started the day with doing a walking meditation practice, and I read this poem that had just been given to me. And that's how most of them have happened. There have been a few that I've just said, I love you, love you, love you. In this moment, I'm going to write something for you. But most of them have come, have come just that way. It's like I don't see them coming, but God wants to write them. So, and every ordination since I've read that poem, every ordination since, we close ordination with that poem, Why You Are Here.
I do remember it well. What is it that you're hoping that your readers will take away from this memoir, Stephanie?
I think oftentimes we get caught in the hurts and the pains of our stories, and we get stuck. And in some ways, we get attached to our stories, like because maybe we don't have a sense of who else we are, or we don't know what else to say about ourselves, or we don't know how to think about ourselves, but we get stuck in this loop. It's usually a loop, And I think I wanted to write this particular memoir to say, you can have something happen. A lot of people do. Most people do. You can have something happen as a child that's completely debilitating, and you can live in a home that's very lonely for you for 1,001 reasons. And on the outside, you cannot have any particular special attributes to call on or think about. And yet, you can still be used in ways you could have never imagined possible through complete surrender, which I didn't do on my own, and I wouldn't have chosen on my own. I didn't ask to do on my own, but was caused to do. And out of that complete surrender, please speak for me, because I cannot. It placed a trust and faith in my heart that's unshakable. So I wanted to share the story to say that if, in our way, in your way, the listeners and the readers' way, to surrender to those places in yourself that are so hard and so difficult, and in your words and in your way to give them over and hand them over to what you would call the unseen hand. Oh my God, there's a life that's waiting for you that you could never imagine. And you know, the coolest thing in the end is that we really, in the end, after all of it, we get to really find out, really, it was never about us at all. We were just the moon. We were just here to get something done. Mm-hmm. We were just here to share some stories. We were just here to play a part. We were just here to create our little patch in the big quilt of life. You know, and I think when we live in our fear and our hurts and our pains, our ego gets pretty engorged with them. And as we surrender them to love again and again, and trust that there's something much bigger in charge of us, much bigger unfolding us, much bigger, that knows the much larger purpose and picture of our life that we could ever know, that always is just beyond our understanding, but as close as our heartbeat. Then you can have a life you probably will never see coming.
Wow.
Yeah, that I have never really described it all that way before, but thank you
beautiful.
For that.
One of the poems that you include in your book is a poem that you wrote when you were studying to be an interfaith minister, and in the early 2000s. And it would later represent the guiding principles, almost like a mission statement, if you will, for the Tree of Life interfaith temple that you later created. If you could just tell us a little bit about the significance of the poem, and then it would be a lovely way to end the podcast if you could read it to us.
Well, this was one of those that happened like the other one that I was telling you about. I was in my space on Middle Street, and I remember the day, and it was, it's like, sit down. I'm sitting on the floor on the carpet, and I have something to say. And this poem came out because I was thinking, oh, this could be the place of our new church. I'm going to be a minister. So what does that mean? So I was thinking about all those things at that moment, because I was getting close to my graduation and ordination. And this is what happened. This is what God wrote through me. What if there was a place where we could practice respecting religious differences while honoring our sameness? Perhaps then we could recognize the face of our brother and sister beyond color, dress, or language. What if there was a place where we could practice celebrating each person's unique expression of the divine while honoring our common heartbeat? Perhaps then we could understand that each of us has a role to play, a gift to offer. What if there was a place where we could practice engaging the difficult issues while together forging new pathways to peace? Perhaps then we could begin to build a world family and learn to love our neighbor as ourselves.
Amen.
Isn't it wonderful what God can do?
Yes. 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 And for those with any doubt, all you have to do is look at the moon and it will remind us every day, right?
Yeah.
Or listen to you. Where can people find this book? How can people find your book?
You can find it on Amazon, and you can also find it on my publisher's website, Within Stock. It's and I think they have it on other places too, but those are the major ones.
Well, it's a fabulous book.
Oh, thank you.
A generous gift to all who read it, to learn from these wonderful experiences that you have done the work of distilling the mining the gold, and it's filled with that gold. And so thank you so much.
Thank you.
And not only for your memoir, Stephanie, but for all the work you do.
Thank you.
For being a wonderful teacher.
Thank you.
And certainly my life is different, has been made better from so many things that I have learned from you, as you have described here today. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, co-journeyers, for listening. I look forward to being with you again soon. Take care and be well.